right, welcome into the latest edition of the Rewatch Reaction Show. Paul Dehner Jr., Charlie Goldsmith here with you on the Growler. Charlie just said, you know what? I was at the game yesterday. I'm going to go to St. Louis for the Red Series, but grind the tape the whole way so I know you come fully prepared. There's nothing like an airplane tape grind that I know you got in the bag today.
You know, it was sad. I mean, this is a true story. Here I am at CVG Terminal A, where all the not good food options are at 5 a.m. And you know what I learned? Because I don't know, I get to the airports early. It's a thing I do. NFL Pro doesn't update until like 6. So here I am with my coffee ready to grind, but that was put on delay until after I landed.
That's all right. I'm sure there will still be plenty of good takes for you to get to. Of course, as you know, we will take you into the coach's office on this show. This week, we are going to hear from offensive coordinator Dan Pitcher from the conversation that he had with our group of local media. We'll talk about a couple of key plays, one for Jake Browning and one that you may have heard about with Joe Burrow. We're going to kind of focus a little bit on the quarterback position on this episode, as you might imagine. So there's a lot to get into there. Let's go with this. Charlie, where'd you start?
Well, I started with the pressures that Joe Burrow took. And Zach Taylor alluded to this today when he spoke. The Jags, you couldn't quite know what to expect with the new coordinator who had only played one kind of fluky game. They threw a lot of blitzes and a lot of pressures at the Bengals. And what you saw was a trend that we've seen some in previous years, but really got exposed this time. Blitzes, pickups, games, stunts, twists, kind of exposed, inexperience at left guard, inexperience with this offensive line playing together, inexperience in this system at right guard. It was a tough game for Dalton Reisner, and more than just that one play, more than just when Burr was in the game. It extended to when Browning was in as well. You saw that give the Bengals trouble. It wasn't just the linemen, it was the backs as well. But when you look at those plays, you saw kind of a reinforcement of the idea that the lack of continuity, experience, chemistry, reliability on the offensive line, it cost the Bengals a lot of plays where Burrow took a lot of pressure, including one where he tore some ligaments.
Yeah. The one thing that Zach Taylor was talking about on Monday was, look, there was a really interesting game plan for Jacksonville because they didn't feel like they really had much knowledge of what to expect. You had a defensive coordinator that spent 1 year underneath Jeff Hafley in Green Bay and then had one game for the Jags against Carolina where they were up 20-3 at halftime and a lightning delay happened. There wasn't a lot of regular down usage to judge on what to expect from this Jacksonville defense. And what they got was a lot of blitzes, was a lot of challenging this offensive line. And you understand why, for good reason. They made hay with it. What I thought was interesting is that as the game went on, you noticed it got better. Like offensively, the pockets felt cleaner. It wasn't quite as bad. It felt like they were starting to settle down a little bit more as the game got later, certainly in the last drive.
Certainly on the last drive, and the offensive line deserves a lot of credit for how they performed then. But Browning's first drive got killed because of a sack that I guess we shouldn't be blaming Cody Ford at right tackle because he shouldn't be at right tackle, but that was offensive line play. The second interception, a blitz got to the Bengals again, and you saw, the second interception, a blitz got to the Bengals again, and you saw Browning have to try to scramble, and he's throwing on the run, and he's throwing off balance because of the way that their the Jaguars pass protection won the down. And then on the next series, you might remember this third down play is the one where T. Higgins didn't get the flag. But there was a free blitzer around the edge that got by Orlando Brown. Now, maybe that was Browning's man to take on with the throw. But that was another moment where the rules didn't match the protection, the play, and led to a stop by Jacksonville. So I did see some of those trends continue. I saw, again, Dalton Reisner continue to struggle through some of the part of the game. But yes, I'm not trying to diminish at all the way the unit rebounded and responded on the final drive. But even the two scoring drives before that final drive were, just one big play to T and one big play to Jamar, followed by one big play to Mitch Tinsley. It's not like Jake Browning was moving the offense all game. It was kind of choppy and explosive up until the final drive, which was everything you want it to be from an efficiency, reliability, movement perspective.
Yeah, everything that it really wasn't totally before that, without question. I just think the way that you see these pressures, it looked like you said, right? It looked like a group that had played a game and changed together. They and Jacksonville challenged that, and it works out against you. And this is I mean, there are teams across this league that are putting together new pieces of the line early in the season. Like, this is not an uncommon thing, but when those pieces already feel rough, when it's a rookie at one side and you're trying to integrate Dalton Reisner in his second week here on the other side, it's fine to have one of those, and it's fine to have somebody who's a rookie who you've been working in for months. When you have multiple pieces like that and defenses start challenging you with all the blitzes that we saw Jacksonville, you could just hear Liam Cohen and the entire Jacksonville staff sitting there in those film rooms being like, blitz the hell out of them. These guys aren't going to be ready for any exotic blitzes or anything that we do from multiple angles. Let's do it all. Let's bring double A's. Let's drop out and bring guys from the quotes, do all of this stuff. And teams are going to continue. You don't think Brian Flores is in heaven right now thinking about what he could possibly do for Minnesota on Sunday against Jake Browning, against this group that's having trouble picking everything up? I I think that's part of gelling together. It's also something that you can't afford, and that obviously backfired in a massive way on Sunday.
I mean, we're beating around it, right? Let's have the conversation. Like, this is a Bengals team that neglected guard all offseason. We did lots of podcasts about that at the time, checking in at different stages. I'm encouraged by Dylan Fairchild in the big picture, but he's had his rookie moments. And there are 4 teams in the entire NFL starting a rookie guard who was a day 2 or a day 3 pick. Those teams are Miami, Houston, New England. Those teams, their offensive line situations are just as much of a mess as the Bengals. And then Detroit. And as much as we like Tate Ratledge, the only reason he's starting is because Detroit's old center retired in June by surprise. So that the only teams that were really planning on starting a rookie day 2 offensive lineman were New England, Houston, Miami. And they enter the year with Lucas Patrick as their starting right guard, pretty much unchallenged because of how Cody Ford crashed down the depth chart, which is a notable storyline. Patrick has an injury history. Patrick had a poor training camp anyway. And you keep going down this rabbit hole. And that led to an exploitable offensive line, which to me is, I've never been invest in guard, Burrow will be safe. I've never made that jump consistently over the last 5 years. But after how much it was at the center all offseason, I'm making that connection now.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that what happened this offseason, and we're talking about this again now because for all the obvious reasons, because it's everybody's blasting the Bengals for not properly protecting Joe Burrow. And what happened this offseason, in my opinion, is the biggest misstep that they've made since they recognized after the 2021 run they had to change everything. I felt like they had been doing the right things. We saw what happened in 2022. They were the first ones in the pool in free agency. They get Alex Kappa, they get Ted Karras. They made they have Lel Collins come in. They stop-gapped properly. Riley Reef. They're doing that stuff. They spend a first-round pick on Amarius Mims. They were trying to develop one of their own in Cordell Volson for a while, and it was going well enough for a 4th-round pick. They were investing in the position. They invested picks. They didn't all work out. They fired the offensive line coach when it didn't work out. Like they were willing. They're willing to make the changes and keep trying it. And it felt like it wasn't a lack of investment. They signed Orlando Brown. They do Amarius Mims. They re-up on Karras twice now. Like, to me, this was the first time where it was like, just go get a guard. Go get a real guard, one more real guard. And all the rest of your plan, I'm still on board that you guys are doing everything you really can. Their style is going to be their style. And we spent a lot of time today, and we'll spend more time tomorrow as well on PD and J with Mo and with Jay, talking about the bigger picture of the philosophy of their offensive style and what this all means. But in terms of the line, that was the misstep that you can point to. But I don't think it's like a pattern over a long period of time. I think that's a little unfair because I do think they've made a lot of steps in that direction, but this one just stands out. And when this happens in week 2, it makes it all that much worse.
I think one of my favorite quotes from you in the history of this podcast was you saying, this was like weeks ago, but I remember the line, it just all goes back to Marco Wilson Tuesday.
Yeah.
For those who missed it, we did our nightly Who Day Nights shows in March, and the Bengals never signed anybody. They got Slayton. But then on Tuesday, we're ready to do this live show, and all these free agents are coming off the board. And all they did that day was sign Marco Wilson. And they're working on the Jamar extension. They're working on the T extension. And Guard just got kicked down the road. And by the time those deals were done and the Bengals had a clearer picture of their cap situation, combined with the fact of how they wanted to structure those specific contracts, they kind of got caught. And Lucas Patrick was their answer at guard. I don't know that any team in the league would say, yes, Lucas Patrick is our short and long-term solution at right guard. And he's had an injury history and he got hurt. Now Dalton Reisner's in. And it just all adds up and sprinkles up. And I mean, it's the thing that people will be talking about the second most now for the Bengals going forward, behind the fact that I think Joe Burrow's injury history is now more of a real thing than it's ever been.
No question about that. All right, let's shift forward now. Let's get into one of our favorite things that we do every single week here on the Rewatch, and that is go into the coach's office. All right, so every other week in the coach's office, we are going to take a peek into a position group, into a set of plays with a coach. In the other weeks, you're going to hear from the coordinators. You're going to hear portions of their reaction to certain plays or situations or themes that we talk about from our Monday sessions with the coordinators, where we get a lot of great stuff. And it was particularly great with Dan Pitcher today, as you might imagine. More of that also coming your way tomorrow because it was a long-ranging conversation, including some stuff from Zach Taylor. But we're going to get into our conversation with Dan Pitcher. Before I want to do that, this is the coach's office brought to you by R&A Marketing. You've been hearing me talk about it for a while. It's finally happening. The Growler podcast has a proper brand and a world-class website. So I want to introduce you to the team that's making it happen. Segment is sponsored by R&A. They aren't just a sponsor, though. I mean, they're the architects behind our new digital home. They literally building our brand's future. So we chose them because we didn't just want a website. We wanted a strategic partner, and you can see their incredible work for yourself. Just go visit ramarketing.com. They built their reputation in the furniture business, which you may think that's weird, but here's the key. We're working them because expertise isn't furniture. It's about building premium brands and driving measurable growth. And so whether you're a professional services, tech, consumer goods, or just building a brand or a podcast like us, the R&A playbook is designed to make you the premier choice in your market. I can't give any bigger endorsement than to say, we trust them with our business. Go to thegrowlerpodcast.com. All right. I think let's start here. We talked to Dan Pitcher about a number of things. Let's start with the play, okay? Let's start with the Joe Burrow injury play. So here you go. It's a straight drop back, and what Pitch had to say, basically, that you'll hear from him in 1 second, is this was innocuous, was the word that stood out to me. Innocuous. The most standard play that you can call. Burrow goes down, and obviously everything bad happens at the bottom of the pile. Let's hear from Dan Pitcher.
I mean, it's about as standard of football play as you're going to have. It's a pick a side read. He's on the right side. We didn't love the relationship with the corner and the receiver, and that's going to happen sometimes. And so when that happens, you're faced with the decision: do I throw the ball anyway, and have to maybe target the ball in a spot that might put the ball at risk, or I target it in a spot where I don't think it's going to get completed, or do I pull the ball down and try to find a secondary answer? And both of those are viable options. We chose the second one. There's times where he's chosen the first one. It's a football play. It's a really unfortunate outcome to a standard football play. I wish it didn't happen. I feel terrible for Joe. It's a football play.
It's a football play. And you can see down here looking for Jamar. It's just not there. and has to react. There's pressure right up in his face. And that's really what this is about, Charlie, is it's about the fact that you look for the number one read, it's not there, and the pressure is already right up in your face, and he immediately goes into scramble mode rather than throw it away, get rid of the ball.
I mean, there was accountability from Dalton Reisner, who spoke today on this play. I saw some of those comments, and ultimately, guy ends up on the ground. To me, that's elementary. I'm not an offensive line expert, but to see how quickly that happened is the biggest detail to me that stands out about this play. And you had Fairchild getting knocked back a bit too. But I'm not putting the blame on the guards. When you look at how the hit happened and how it played out, combined with how it played out in coverage, as Pitch discussed, that's what I see here.
I think what he's talking about is the case, is that it's that simple. It was a simple football play. This isn't some crazy call. We could talk about Zach Taylor's call that we discussed last week in Cleveland, deep in your own end, dropping back, trying to throw the ball, like dangerous stuff for your team, for your quarterback's health. Plays like that are the ones that I think you look to the call or the style and say he got hurt because of reckless way of playing the game. This is not that. I think if we're talking about the play, like Pitch said, it's a terrible outcome, but this is a standard play that I don't think anything with that deserves scrutiny.
I do want to also look at the play before. I'm sorry in advance for what I'm about to do. But do we have it up here on the screen?
Yeah, here we go.
Here's play before, 1st and 20, coming off the penalty. Look at the top of your screen, T. Higgins one-on-one coverage. Burrow hikes the ball. Higgins runs a stop route. We've seen a million times. Corner ends up on the ground. It's a very Jalen Ramsey Super Bowl moment where Burrow's looking the other way. He's looking, let me get a reminder of what's going on the bottom of the screen. Chase motions onto the strong side, 3 receivers in trips. Karras hikes the ball. Chase is kind of running a short curl stop. He's bracketed. There are 2 receivers kind of breaking off deeper routes behind him. But by the time that starts to develop, the pressure breaks through the middle. So Burrow never really gets to go through his progression as he diagnoses all that. And just a 4-man rush, but another one of those games that broke through the right side against the right side of the Bengals offensive line. But, we all know the screenshot of Jalen Ramsey in the Super Bowl, Jamar Chase with his hand up. We've all seen that. If Burrow his progression would have happened to have taken him the other way, he would have seen Higgins with 60 yards of green grass in front of him. Touchdown Bengals, no injury. What could have been? And as I went back through the tape, that was my holy cow moment. What could have been if Burrow looks to his right on the play before, T scores, and it's a whole different game.
It is a whole different game. Let's move on to Jake Browning here a little bit. Let's talk about Jake Browning and I mean, look, this is it. We can talk all we want to about philosophy in the past and Joe Burrow and all of these things. The Bengals season is now on Jake Browning's shoulders. It's going to go as far as how far can he take him? How realistic is 500? Is better than 500? Is any of that stuff? And so we dissect his game a little bit. I asked, I asked Dan Pitcher specifically about this last drive and the fact that in the last drive, what'd you like? 12 plays, 92 yards. Everything was great. It was the drive you dream of from a coordinator's or a quarterback standpoint, thinking like we're going to hear about all the, some of the great plays, getting the PI, maybe the 4th down. He goes with something much simpler. Here's Dan Pitcher.
I mean, I think the whole thing starts on 3rd and 10, backed up, and just having, obviously knowing that he made a couple reckless decisions prior to that point, and like that's a moment in time where he could have really tried to force another throw, and he knew we had 4 downs, and so on 3rd and 10, he takes a check down to Drew Sample and gets us to 4th and 3, and then on 4th and 3, we're able to call a high percentage play that we get a completion to Chase Brown, and now you're moving forward. So that might seem like maybe the most innocuous moment of the drive, but like that's a great representation of him just recognizing the moment he's in and just taking the play that was there.
Is that the evolution necessary for Jake next? Is little less of some of the riskier stuff and understanding more situationally and taking checkdowns more often and understanding when to cut bait on a play and things like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Growth of his game.
yeah, I think there's always a balance there. I think back to 2023 when we went to Jacksonville and the mantra of the entire week was just chase completions, and he had completed 90% of his passes like that. So he can play that way, but he doesn't. We don't have to box him in there either. So for him, it's just about recognition of the moment. What are the game circumstances? Where does this dial need to be right now, from aggressive to conservative? And I thought the start of that drive was in a moment where you might think it's got to be all the way through the roof aggressive. Well, no, we have 2 downs, get us half. We can call a good play and let's move forward.
Love that from Pitch. It's the small things and allows them to set them up the 4th down conversion that they get fairly easily. Remember, we heard the day before from Jake Browning after the game talking about how you can't be afraid to throw the 4th, and I got to be delusional going out there ready to rip it. And in that spot, he did understand not to rip it. I'll bring this back up here. He's sitting here. I need all these yards. It's 3rd and 10. Bad things that happen. And then just gets out, sees it right in front of him, takes it, just like Pitch said. That's the type of stuff I think that when you saw the interceptions early in the game, particularly the one that he didn't just throw away and kind of launched into space, you see where I think understanding chase completions, get back into that mode. I liked him using that verbiage that he talked about from 2023. I think that's going to be critical for Jake Browning. He did it to the point that in his 7 games in 23, he had a better than 70% completion rate. And that's going to be critical for him, is to taking the bad plays and, dial it up, let it rip, do your thing, be confident. But remembering the fact that chasing completions and understanding game situations for checkdowns is going to be critical to really this team's survival.
Burrow had a whole year of the check down. So yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. That's the thing quarterbacks do when they get more experienced in a multi-year progression. I do want to give a lot of credit to Zach Taylor and Dan Pitcher on this final drive. Like, we spent a lot of times over the years talking about Joe Burrow on final drives that he hasn't converted. What I saw here was a reversion to bread and butter, like money plays for the Bengals. Like 4th and 3, they run that classic flat to Chase Brown breaking out of the backfield. I remember they did that for a touchdown against Baltimore at home last year. Coming across with a Higgins slant to kind of seal him off for a pick. 1st down. That's a classic Bengals offense play. Jamal runs kind of a stop back shoulder route, timing, bang. Classic money play for the Bengals. 2nd and 3, they run, we've seen it a million times. They spread it out. They get Yoshivas out wide. They're kind of near the Jaguars goal line at this point. Timing, bang. Gesicki breaks open on that slant catch, gets down to the 1-yard line. Like, they ran their favorites. And I thought that was really cool and really well done and well designed. On that drive, you had Brown, Chase, Yoshivas, Gesicki, all making massive plays. You didn't see T, but T did his part, more than his part on Sunday. You saw that skill position depth and talent show up. That's what the Bengals offense is, plus Joe Burrow. But you don't have Burrow, but you still saw the structure and the starch still there in that offense.
Well, and I think it kind of goes back to finding things that Jake Browning is going to be comfortable in a week when he didn't rep anything. And so you'll have that expanded beyond your favorites in a week where you have a week for him to be the guy and prep and all that stuff that he's going to be the rest of the year. It takes me back to when I did the story on the failed clutch drives with Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan and all the coaching staff. And they talked about that's their strategy. I mean, in the biggest moments, go to your bread and butter stuff. Go to the stuff that everybody absolutely knows and let your players go win for you. And I think that was an extra necessity here because you had a whole game plan that Jake Browning wasn't really a part of. So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves in the coming hikes. And you're going to lean into Browning stuff, obviously, but it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves in the coming weeks. All right, I do want to thank Dan Pitcher for all the time that he spends with us and the insight that he gave. Great stuff from the coach's office this week, presented by R&A Marketing. Look, if your business is ready to stop tinkering and start building a serious professional brand that gets results, you need to talk to the team at R&A Marketing. They're the real deal. We're trusting them with our brand. It's the best endorsement I can give. Visit them today, ramarketing.com. That's ramarketing.com. Schedule a consultation. Tell them the Growler sent you. All right, Charlie. Any potpourri from you this week? I know it's like this was not a good week to dabble in the potpourri, right? It's like it's a little too serious, a little too many heavy topics, little too much sadness across the Bengals world to just be dabbling in fun, silly plays that you tend to find. Did you find anything for me?
My T moment was my big find that I felt like I noticed on film. I don't have any more circled here. There was one more play.
Gesicki play. I got a Gesicki play for you here if you want one.
Let's get to that one because I loved this play a lot. Close your eyes, except this is a podcast and you can't close your eyes, or this is a video and then you couldn't see what I'm about to show. But if you could just see a silhouette of this is 1 minute and 20 seconds left, first down from the Jags 20. Browning's leading the Bengals down the field. This is the one play from that drive that I admitted in my previous segment. You have Browning throwing the ball from kind of a parallel to where the play is going on, foot positioning framework. With his arm, he's kind of reaching around the defensive tackle whose lane is right in front of him. Kind of looks like Matthew Stafford, like he's not Matthew Stafford, but this specific throw, the way he leads Gesicki around by anticipating so much with a different arm angle around, zipping it, curling it past a defensive lineman. Like, I thought this was just frankly a big league play. Like, this was Browning by far, in my opinion, best moment of the game. This is strong quarterbacking, and it wasn't all perfect. Some of the interceptions were terrible, but this was a moment of strong quarterbacking with the way he anticipates, leads, uses arm angles, shows savvy. I loved this play from Jake Browning.
Yeah, it's I think it's an example of what he can be and kind of is in a lot of ways. Is he can progress, he can process it. He knows the offense. He's a guy that guys trust, and he has trust and has developed chemistry in them. He has reps with them. I mean, the Mitch Tinsley throw. I mean, I just loved that line. Good things happen to me when I throw it up to Mitch. Like, it's not like he comes in there and doesn't know what he's doing. And I think that's part of the reason why the Bengals are so set and confident in leaning into Jake as far as he can take them. And we'll see how far that ends up being. More on that tomorrow on PD&J. Make sure you are checking that out, locking that in. Hopefully you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. Remember that we will have, of course, this show with you premiering every Monday, or at least the day after games, at 8 o'clock on the YouTube channel. So get those alerts. Make sure you're getting the alerts and the pop-up that we have a new show up for you. Next week, we'll have another coach on board, going directly into their actual coach's office. So look out for that. Thanks again to R&A Marketing for all they do to get us going. Go to the growlerpodcast.com and check it out. Charlie, enjoy the game in St. Louis. Say hello to all the people that have decided to come by, and yet in the background. Very inconsiderate of your space, I must say. But we appreciate their presence into lighting up our podcast. Enjoy it, and we'll talk to everybody.
They're actually talking about the cornerback rotation. They didn't like Cam Taylor.
Give me their thoughts on that.
We'll
splice those in next week, Charlie. Have a good one, everybody.